Welcome to the Apostolic Voice with Doctors Mark and Jill Kauffman.
Welcome to the Apostolic Voice. I'm your host, Mark Kauffman, here in beautiful Kingdom Broadcasting Network studios in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. We want to thank you for joining us, and I want to welcome our live audience. Thank you for being with us today. And back again this week is Bishop Tommy Reid, but now he looks even better because he has his lovely wife, Pastor Wanda. It's good to have both of you with us. And you two just keep on going. And I just want to model my life in the future after both of you.
Well, I married a child bride. She's much younger than I am.
That was not true.
Do we need to repent?
That's right.
She is younger than I am, though.
5 years. No,
5
that's
years.
like a millennial, right? No.
Well, and you know, you've continued in ministry. Most husband and wife ministry teams usually, okay, we're retiring at this age. Here you are, you're 89 years old and still going strong. And together, I love it. You're down here for the weekend in Newcastle in ministry.
You ask me a question. What it's like to live with me?
What is it like to live with him?
It is what it is. No, it's a wonderful life. It really is.
It has been wonderful.
We just, in July, celebrated our 53rd wedding anniversary. In July.
Isn't it amazing?
When you can make it that many years in the ministry, you've accomplished something.
Well, absolutely.
God's grace and His goodness.
Most ministers don't make it that long. Longevity of ministry says a lot about both of you. And not just the long ministry, but a productive, fruitful ministry. And the lives you've touched over the years is amazing. And you've been very involved. You weren't just the pretty first lady sitting on the front row. What have you done in ministry, ma'am?
Where shall I start? Well, I was involved when I moved to Buffalo. Guess where from? Altoona, Pennsylvania. I was born and raised in Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's a long story how I got there. But my two sisters lived up there and attended the church in South Buffalo, where he came to be pastor. And so that hooked me into a church right away and a single pastor.
Yeah. And the rest is history. 53 years of it, right?
That's it. But, we did music together, keyboard, organ, Sunday school, children's work, developing choirs, children's choir, senior choir, but we loved it all.
It was pretty obvious that when this tall, beautiful blonde walked into church 50-some years ago, that it was obvious that Tommy Reid needed a wife. So I think everybody chose us for each other.
Everybody did, really.
Well,
they were all working from one end to the other.
As they say, a match made in heaven, right?
Yeah, it was.
It's heaven that you've been very compatible in ministry and the vision that God has given you. And
well, we did everything in the ministry together. I mean, and it wasn't designed for an end result for the two of us. It's just what God called us to do as a church.
Right.
And it was a good time.
And I think it was an involvement with people.
Yes.
Just one story, because he's still with us. A young man by the name of Tom Wren. I go to his house in South Buffalo on Imson Street in the middle of the city. And his brother had been to church, and so I go to pick him up. I'm still driving taxi cab for the church, and a small church. I'm pastoring the church and doing the youth group. So I go to pick his brother up, and he's not really interested. And the father said, well, there's got another boy who looks like me, and I think he'd be interested in going to the youth group. Mm-hmm. That started a friendship that, in fact, this past few days, we've been with Tom. It's still a close personal, interpersonal relationship, which I think it's been in Buffalo with many of our people.
Right.
You know, when you love people, when God puts a special love in your heart for people, he did that for me at a special time because there was so much busyness going on. And I have felt this conviction, God, if I don't love these people, if these people can't walk up to me and talk to me and see within me my love and care for them, regardless of what I do, will mean nothing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And that's how all of these years, these 53 years, I functioned with our women. And I had a pleasure of teaching a women's Bible study just starting this year for number 35 years.
For 35 years.
And you know, my successor is single. He was married, but still raising his own children. But he doesn't have a wife, so she's still first lady around there.
She's still the first lady, absolutely.
Oh, I just be who I am.
Did you know prior to meeting him, because God doesn't call the partial house, he calls the whole house. And so the calling was for the two of you for Buffalo. Did you know that you had a calling to ministry prior to meeting him? Did you have that sense?
Yes, because I did it all my life, even in the church that I attended. And I mean, it was just
part of your
my
DNA.
Mindset, my DNA. And the day that I walked in the church, it was his first year. You had just gotten there, a few weeks. And I would see it in my mind, and he was on the platform. And there was a connection in my life to him. But I'll tell you, I'd have been the last person. I would have taken a bullet before I would have said anything to him about it.
Wasn't a girl that chased the guy.
No. I had a full life.
You had to
do the chasing, huh? You had to do the chasing.
I thought I was better than that, but I really had to.
You just couldn't help yourself, right, sir?
But you know something? When God moved in our midst, he moved in both of our hearts. He drew us into what he was going to do in the midst of it all, and especially our church growth came, once we moved to the suburbs, because that was the place for us to go, which is a miracle itself, and built. And God began to move in the charismatic movement in our life. In a Catholic church, it started in a Catholic church. And, with our background, it was like, is that a possibility?
Yeah.
And we went there, when we went in to the first night of meeting, because we were skeptical. We were a little bit skeptical.
I had preached a sermon on the false move of God in the Roman Catholic Church. I was sure it was wrong.
Boy, that was setting you up.
And that was the week that God spoke to me. I went to Toronto, and God said to me, you need to go where I moved. I said, well, why would you come there instead of mine? I mean, you told me to build a church here. Why would you come to that church? And the Lord said, just go find out. And I went. I remember standing in the back, and Father Jerry Walters, the Roman Catholic priest at the Basilica in Buffalo, was standing. He gave an altar call just like I did, said the same things I did. You want to come and be born again. Gave an altar call. Then he prayed for the sick just like we did. And I thought, this is strange. I didn't know Catholic priests did this. And then, of course, we not only went there, but that was the week he decided to be baptized in water. Well, that was the end of his tenure as the priest of the Roman Catholic Church. The bishop said, well, if this is an affirmation of your infant baptism, fine, we'll accept that. But if this is a new baptism, we can't accept that. So he had no place to go, so he came to live with us. Now we have a Catholic priest living in our house. I have never been inside of a Catholic church except for a wedding. I don't know what in the world these people do. But every morning he got up and went to Mass, and I thought, what is he doing? I didn't think I believed in that. So it was a journey, and Wanda and I lived that journey together.
What was a beautiful thing about it wasn't just a happening. When we decided one Sunday night after our 7 o'clock service, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brother
To go
Causton
down,
was.
yes, to go
the Caustons
down
were there. Yeah.
to where the meeting was going on in the Basilica. If you've ever seen in Lackawanna, the Basilica there,
It's built after the
worth
Basilica in Rome.
going there to see the structure. But walking in where those people were, they were in kind of like another kind of a room. When I walked in there, and there were those precious people raising their hands toward God and worshiping, I couldn't contain myself because I could feel the Spirit of the Lord in that meeting. And it just ignited something in me. Well, it was soon after that those meetings were put a stop to. And guess what? Our church grew from,
we were running about 120 people on a Sunday.
On a Sunday.
And we grew to 800 in 1 week.
1 week. Grew to 800 in 1 week.
Now, the interesting thing about the revival in the Roman Catholic Church in Buffalo was that it began with what they called the Sanctuary Sisters. They were 5 Catholic ladies who would meet together for prayer.
The Sanctuary Sisters.
Sanctuary
in
Sisters.
our church on a Monday morning, they met there for prayer.
Now, they were interesting because they were full of fun. They were, all of them kind of, they definitely were really common, ordinary ladies that got together, and then they got together and they prayed. One of them was the man who took my place, Bishop Robert Stearns. His grandmother was one of those Sanctuary Sisters.
Wonderful.
And of course, that as a result, they ignited revival in the basement of the Catholic Church. That ignited a revival that spread throughout the city and finally spread to our church.
Those ladies started in our church on, like for instance, on us. You had church on Sunday. Monday morning, they would go in there and they would pick up everything. You know what I mean? How, you know, their things are out of order. Mm-hmm. The book racks, they went around and made sure every book rack at all of the pews were straightened up. They took care of the physical maintenance, housework. That's why they were called the Sanctuary Sisters. They did that part, and then they prayed.
Wow.
Prayed for the church.
And their service and their intercession together, huh?
And they're all gone.
Ignited a move of God.
They did their ministry, and they're gone.
And then out of that came 2 people, Bishop Robert Stearns, whose grandmother was one of them, and she was also related to Jamie Procknell, who has head of our pastoral care.
Yeah, wonderful.
She's amazing, and she prays for everybody that calls to let you know that they're sick or whatever, and she checks on them and prays.
So it's evident the importance and the power of prayer.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because these Sanctuary Sisters were the one, they actually ignited the revival through intercession.
Yeah, they did, because I didn't have anything to do with it. I mean, I didn't even believe in it, so I thought it was.
But you become the recipient of it. They come to your church.
Yeah.
But you know, when they came in, they didn't just fill our chairs in our pews. They came in with such a hunger for God. They wanted to know more. You know, the Bible became alive to them.
Right.
They knew nothing about just sitting down and reading the Bible because they were told they could never understand it. So after a couple of years of that, he got summoned to the bishop's office in Buffalo.
Wow.
When I was I'm on my way to the bishop's office of the Roman Catholic Church in Buffalo, and the man who was taking me said, "This is the first time I've ever been to the bishop's office for a disciplinary action." And I can't believe I'm driving a Protestant preacher for discipline to the Roman Catholic bishop's office. And of course, the question was, how many people are in your church that were former Catholics? And I said, you don't really want to know. Because, you know, people were hungry for God. It wasn't a matter of where I go to church.
It was
a matter of finding God.
Listen, we're going to take a 60-second break. We'll be right back. Don't you go anywhere.
Wow. What an incredible word we're hearing tonight from Dr. Mark Kauffman and Bishop Tommy Reid. You know, the late Paul Crouch said this about Bishop Reid. Tommy has been a leader in the body of Christ for over a half a century. His legacy is everlasting. He raised up a great ministry and knows how to live out of a dream. The radical revolution is Bishop Tommy's dream. He dreamt and built many churches. He dreamed of changing the city, and that dream became a reality. Now Tommy dreams of a cultural change in our world through Jesus Christ and the power of his kingdom. We suggest you read Radical Revolution, and you can receive this book at www.drmarkkaufman.org for $20, including shipping and handling. Now back to the Apostolic Voice.
Welcome back. We were talking with the Reids. These are amazing stories. I love this. And in the Hebrew, the word testimony means do it again. And the Lord would command the Israelites to make sure that they would tell the testimonies of what God had done to their children and children's children. And as they would do that and make those decrees, God would do it again.
Yes.
And that's why we need to hear these stories.
Well, one thing about our story is that we had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Absolutely.
I mean, I wish I could attribute. People used to ask me, tell us about church growth, because our church had grown, from maybe 120 people to a couple thousand. And in those days, it's not that large anymore, but it had just exploded in growth. I said, I don't know anything about church growth. I have no way of because I had zero to do with this. We just went down to the Catholic Church and saw all these people, and it wasn't long before all of a sudden, and remember, all the people were coming were not Catholic. Some of the Baptists and Methodists and Episcopalians had gone over to the Catholic Church. That revival that took place in those years was very ecumenical. It was across the line, and they were looking for a place where they could meet God.
Then they started having meetings in various Catholic churches, and that gave us relationships with a priest. We would go to the church with the priest, and they were different spots in the city. Yeah. First thing we knew, some of the pastors became close friends of ours.
Yeah, and we'd have 8 or 9 Catholic priests sitting in the pews. We'd have maybe 13 or 14 or 15 or 20 nuns coming with their garb for Sunday night. It was an amazing day.
I grew up in church in the 60s and saw, of course, the charismatic revivals. We were a part of that. And the one thing that always stood out to me was the hunger and thirst that people had for God. Yeah. And at large, the Church of America, I don't see that.
No, I don't either.
And I think if we're going to see a fresh move of the Spirit of the living God, we got to recover our thirst and our hunger for Jesus, for his presence. And
we've been in a survival mode. Just keep us going until we get ready to go to heaven.
Just maintaining our salvation until Jesus comes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
I believe God's going to put a new hunger in the hearts of people for him.
If you think about the first miracle Jesus did, it came as a result of thirst. Mm-hmm. Okay? Which to me speaks metaphorically of a thirst for him. And that was the beginning of miracles. If we're going to see the beginning of miracles, we got to recover our thirst for Jesus, for his presence.
Yes.
We have to. We have to. So, and this is one thing I love. I hear what you did in the past, but by knowing the two of you for the last 10 years, you still have this passion for the Lord. I love it. I think, you've never lost your fire and your desire for him. What would you say is the result of that? Because so many pastors burn out, they quit, they retire. You two are still going strong. You're still in pursuit of God.
Well, it's nothing that we are trying to generate. It is something that happens, first of all, for intensifying your love for him. It's so easy to just move along out of habit and say, oh, the Lord, he is good. But I mean, there has to be an intense renewal of love for the Lord, number one. He's not going to come back to indifference and say, oh yeah, I love God, and just go on your way. There has to be a focus of saying, Jesus is all in all to me. And then you share it through your life and let people know that They need to come to him. He is waiting to just draw them to himself. It is heartbreaking to see churches just maybe half full, or just a few here or a few there. I think the enemy has done a work in creating fear in the heart of humanity. And now, instead of doing this, they're doing this.
It's
When they
supposed to,
break apart.
this whole pandemic should be driving us to Christ.
That's right.
Desire for more of him, when many are, there's a falling away that's taking place.
Yes.
And that's heart-wrenching to see this take place.
Yes.
You know, and is it possible that the Church of America has become like the church at Ephesus, where the Lord, he commended them for all their good works, but rebuked them? They lost their first love.
Yes.
And we're doing a lot of things. Church is doing many things in their community, but have they lost their first love? We have to recover that.
I think one of the things that really disturbs me is I don't feel, even when I go to church, the hunger there was back in the charismatic movement. People were totally hungry for God. There is a lacking in the church, in my estimation, and I go to quite a few churches. I don't feel that as I felt it then, but I think God is going to bring it back to the hearts of people.
Absolutely. And that's what we should be praying, that God begins to develop a thirst that nothing will satisfy us but Jesus.
Does a day go by in our lives that we do not tell the Lord how much we love him? There should not be a day go by. You know, I tell, couples now, there's not a day goes by that I don't tell my husband, I love you. You are my sweetheart today and forever, right?
That's
and
very
this
true.
is the way we are for each other. I mean, we're in love. We're in love. I'm 84 and he's 89. But I think that is an example of the church with the Lord.
But I also
every
think
day.
that is demonstrated by our family.
Yes.
I watch Amy. She is very much in love with Jay, and Jay is very much in love with her. They have demonstrated, and I think by their parents too. They had two parents
Yes.
who very much care for each other and is still alive, although his mother's very ill. I think we can carry that love for each other as a married couple, not only with us all our life, but we give it to our children.
And
The
we have
importance.
grandchildren. We have two granddaughters, one of which now that has really surprised me, but is pursuing God. She'll be 20 in January. Would you believe it, Mark?
Hard to believe.
And our Chloe's coming up behind her. She's 17. Our granddaughter is a student in
With Michael Koulianos.
with Michael
right.
Koulianos
And that's
in
part of
Jesus
the
Image,
Florida, yeah.
Jesus Image School.
Mhm.
And you know
Wonderful.
how they spend the first class every morning of the week. It is called In His Presence. And that's what they do every morning. And then they'll take one full day in a week and make it a full day of their academics in His presence,
Wonderful.
pursuing God,
She sent us videos
of them
and
praising God.
with them
First
raising
thing
their
in the
hands.
morning.
And
For
But you
one
see,
solid morning.
you've passed these godly traits down to your daughter, to your granddaughters,
Yeah.
and that's the importance of family. We're watching the moral fabric of family, okay, in America, okay, it's under attack.
Yes.
You know, the number of divorces, not only in the world, but among church-going people.
To me, it's better than what I saw as a child. When I grew up as a child, I grew up in Springfield, Missouri, the headquarters of the Assemblies of God, and I grew up with the children of all the executives and all of the heads of a denomination in a day when we were really having revival.
Right.
And yet, I found a coldness in my friends, except in one of them, there was a hunger for God, and that was Paul Crouch.
Mhm.
But of all the ones I know, he was the only one that I remember that had a heart for God. And look at what he did with TBN. He died when his father died. On the way back, they were missionaries in the land of Egypt, coming back. His dad died on the ship, coming home, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Here he was growing up alone with his mother and his sister. And but when you realize what happens when a life is sold out to God, it's amazing.
I did a little study several years ago through the Old and New Testament to find out who said, "I love you, Lord." Now, I know that Peter was coerced a little bit, okay,
Yes,
so I
yes.
didn't include him.
Yeah, no.
Only one person in Scripture you will find said, "I love you, Lord." And it was only one time in the Psalms, it was David, one time.
Mhm.
And I find that very disappointing that you would see in the Scriptures that very few. And so, you know, since that time, every day I wake up in the morning, "I love you, Lord."
Mhm.
You know, and I think the church has to get back, before anything, back to an intimate relationship with Him.
And Kay, can I say something right now? This is going to be off the wall, maybe, but maybe for our discussion. I have a lot of friends in ministry, but Mark Kauffman, you're probably my closest. And the reason I feel like that, I don't see it very often, is because I see a hunger in your heart for God. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but there's a demonstration you give me when I'm with you. You don't talk about it, you don't mention it, but I know when I'm with you that you're a seeker of God. That's what the world needs.
And that's when I come back to the Lord, going back 33 years ago, and 15 years I had run from the Lord, and I said, "Lord," I serve the world. I said, "I'm giving it all to you. And if I couldn't do it the right way, I wasn't going to do it anyway at all." And that has been my passion. And I see the same in you. And that's, you know, to be able to, many times in ministry, and there are men and women you meet in ministry along the way, and they've just kind of lost their desire and passion. It just becomes a job to them.
Well, I'm glad for it in many ways, because by nature I'm a workaholic. If I can't work at least 18 hours a day, I feel like I've failed. So I'm a workaholic. The fact that I can get up in the morning and I've got 5 things on my iPhone that I need to do thrills me, because I really believe working for God and with God is very much a part of being His friend.
Listen, time has gone so fast. Did you enjoy this today? Is this amazing? You know, they stir something up inside of you that you just want to chase God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Well, we want to thank you for joining us. Thank our live audience today, all those watching on Dominion TV. And please, will you celebrate with me the Reids? Thank you for joining us. God bless you. Have a God-favored night.
Thank you for watching The Apostolic Voice with Doctors Mark and Jill Kauffman.